Welcome to the Intelligent Teams podcast, where we interview leading thinkers from business and the sciences of mind to find new ways to help your teams and organizations thrive. I'm your host, Daniel Susser. This week's guest on Intelligent Teams is Simon Huss. Simon is a friend of mine, and he's also an executive and life coach. And I thought it would be brilliant to have Simon on Intelligent Teams to talk about whatever comes up between us. Welcome, Simon.
Thank you, Daniel. Really lovely to be here.
Simon, can you share a little bit about who you are and what brought you to the kind of work you do now?
Yeah, sure. So I currently do executive and life coaching, as you mentioned, and the journey here took quite a few roundabouts, which at the time it didn't really make sense to how I got here, but looking in retrospect, who I am now, it's funny how things in retrospect make sense. So professionally, I basically finished my master's, did economics, so it's basically a mix between how people make choices, how companies make choices in a mathematical framework often. And I went strategy consulting because I had no idea what I wanted to do. And strategy consulting was a great thing where I get chucked into different industries, solve different kinds of problems, learn all about different kinds of businesses. And it was wonderful for learning loads and loads and loads. I love learning. It's one of my highest values. And being put in challenging intellectual situations was bliss, intellectually. So I did that for a couple of years with a company, a strategy consulting company, and the work was really fascinating, but the work-life balance didn't exist. So I went freelance for about 7-8 years, working directly with companies, solving the same kind of problems. And the kind of problems I was solving, the kind of people I was working with, like great people, and it reached a point where the problems I was solving, they were intellectually stimulating, but I didn't really actually care about what I was doing other than the intellectual stimulation. And it's interesting, so from starting that, I basically had a parallel life. All my free time was invested in spirituality, so Buddhism, meditation, personal development, community building around those two things, including running workshops for 40, 50 people for free, just because this was fun and this was great and this was meaningful. And then it reached a point, so I was working for Coca-Cola, the European bottling part of Coca-Cola, doing a project is kind of helping them connect with academics to create a more circular economy. So the plastics can be reused, massive environmental scale for something which uses huge amounts of plastics. So in terms of impact, this is huge. And I was doing this and realised, this is great that this is happening, but it doesn't really make me come alive at all, even though it's this thing which is objectively good. I'm like, And then it started me on a quest of, okay, so what if I tie the stuff I find meaningful in my free time to the stuff I do outside of my free time, my work? Can I get more meaning and purpose in my work? So decided, how can I do that? I didn't really know, but lots of people, startup culture was very big. I knew lots of people who joined startups, started up startups. I joined a startup. It was really fun, lots of different kinds of challenges. And I ended up spending a large part of my time informally coaching other senior leaders in the company, because that's where I could make the most impact. And there was a point where the CEO asked me, hey, we need to professionalize this company. And thought, okay, great way to do that. Let's get executive coaches in for the senior leadership team. She said, great, Simon, can you go find out who to do this with? I did the research. Then the resistance came. They didn't eventually want to use, this is a thing which often happens with startups, didn't actually end up wanting to bring coaches in. So I thought, these people actually sound great. I'm going to self-fund and go on this coaching journey. And realised, wow, these people take all the stuff I've been learning in my personal development world, they take that and put it into language which is accessible to people who aren't in that world. And it's a job, and it's something I've been doing in that world and also in other parts of my life as well. And this is the thing which I find meaningful and can create the biggest impact in a way that matters to me. So then I did training with them, did training with another organization, and then just went, bang, yeah, this is what I want to dedicate my life to.
So, what is some of that language that you think about when you think like what an executive coach brings or a life coach brings?
So there's things around values, purpose, and direction. The Often in businesses, people are very focused on the what, how, and miss out on the why. And even just having that language of the why you're doing it, which can then drive the how, and then from that knowing what to actually do, is a super simple framework of understanding what to do there. There's also neuroscience and cognitive science as well, can basically bridge a lot of the more things which can sound woo and fluffy, but actually ground it in science. So things like nervous system regulation, how it's so easy to get overwhelmed and then go into fight and flight, and things like which have been like thrown into the words of like resilience, but it's really like how do you regulate yourself when in an uncertain, chaotic world.
And yeah, as we know, like work scenarios can bring that up in people, but thinking about what happens at work in terms of nervous system may not always feel comfortable to people. So let's finish that thought. Like when it comes to nervous system regulation at work, like someone comes to you and says, Simon, I'm struggling with how I feel about my team or about team members or different scenarios, and struggling to get regulated. Maybe they would or wouldn't use that language, but what kind of
Yeah.
advice or what kind of exercises or what would you do with them?
So there's a few things. Great things, like it's a simple basic thing, is like meditation's a huge field which can basically give people a practice of being centered amongst the noise of the world. But a lot of people really struggle with meditations. A lot of people have done meditations and go, oh, it doesn't work for me, or it takes too much time, or I'm not doing it right. So a really great way in is micro meditations. It's like 15, 30 seconds, multiple times a day, which could be just stopping, slowing down, even like putting your feet on the floor, noticing what's around you, just taking a look, noticing where you are in the room, where the windows are, where the doors are, where the other people are. And like people look around, you can look around with your head, also allow your body to move as well. So like you bring your whole system into it to like help break out of that freeze response and realize, okay, I can move, I'm mobile.
So would that be the instruction you would give like as is, or I'm kind of maybe that's what we just did, but I was imagining, hey, let's do a micro meditation now, but then we kind of did one.
So that was one I just created. I've never given that specific one before, but that could be something that would be a suggestion. Yeah. Especially if it's someone who feels like they get frozen into their work, like and stuck into it and can't move. That's a good one where you actually just consciously bring in movement, and you also help in doing that practice. You realize, oh, I have agency when I'm feeling frozen. I have tools to take myself out of that freeze.
I think the embodied element of what you're talking about there is one of the things that interested me in having you come on Intelligent Teams, because the type of cognitive and mind sciences I'm interested in, part of this embodied cognitive science movement or tradition or whatever it's called. Can it be a tradition if it's only like 20, 30 years old? Whatever. But the idea of like our bodies being an important cognitive element of cognition, a tool to help cognition, a part of cognition, um, whether we like it or not, however clever or logical or mathematical you think you are, like your body will help you make sense of the world. So it makes sense that if I'm struggling at work with something to do with how I show up, how I make sense of the world around me, how I engage in problems, that I should use my body in that. And what you just described of like visually using your body or feeling your feet on the floor or very real visceral body stuff. And yeah, what does that do to someone who uses their body more in their work?
Especially with like high performing executives, the actual bringing the body in can be like the biggest resistance because people have got very, very good at using cognitive tools in a more logical way. But using the body, the best way I can say it is basically you get a whole different data stream of stuff going on. And people talk about like having a gut feeling or like something doesn't feel right and then later it turns out that they were on something. That's something you can train and become more sensitive to. And actually, the gut feeling, my best understanding of it is our system is giving us information that we can't maybe articulate verbally, but we're taking in so much information and somewhere something's going on that we're processing on a level sometimes subverbally, and bringing this in and making it more conscious. We can notice, it could be I'm having a difficult conversation with someone. I don't know what's going on, but I feel something in my system, and even noticing that and bringing that into the space can and sharing that with them can then go, yeah, actually I feel uncomfortable about this. And it can help, I think, especially in relationship, to find out what's actually going on with the other person, and bring that and be more vulnerable and allow a more real conversation rather than the surface veneers of what we're supposed to do in meetings or in relationship, and actually get to more, hey, I'm a human, you're a human, we've got this situation around us, but how can we actually meet each other in a way which actually serves both of us better?
And I think I remember my mind changed about gut feeling stuff when it was put to me that you don't have to like obey the gut feeling, right? It doesn't mean like, oh, I trust my gut and therefore it's right, or if it doesn't feel right, you don't do it, because sometimes it is like the right thing to do, quote unquote, to do something that doesn't feel good, but it is useful information. So it's like if something doesn't feel right for you, and you increase the sensitivity to what that means. Do I feel uncomfortable? Do I feel afraid? Do I feel upset? Do I feel threatened? Those are all very slightly different things. Well, then I can ask myself, what about this proposal? What about this benign change to the setup of my teams or my line management or whatever is making me feel afraid? And I can ask that question with curiosity and uncover something, and then use my in the head, rational, thinky, wordy tools to try and make sense of it. And then it turns out that the answer might be, I can either talk myself down and say, actually, this is safe, or I can express that to the person and say, I feel uncomfortable there and I'm going to struggle to get on board because I feel like this threatens my job at some point. Can I have some reassurance, please? Or can we have some method that we're going to use? And then you're bringing your whole system into the decision making and not just the thinky bits or something like that.
I really like you bringing in that thing explicitly around the gut feeling. This doesn't mean this is true. I've worked with people where it's almost their gut feeling is so miscalibrated. Following their gut feeling leads them to the wrong choice. Actually, it's like almost doing the opposite. They can then go, oh, actually, and actually doing the opposite gives them new things which are actually more what they want in the world, and then they can recalibrate, because it's a constant fitting of, okay, what's this telling me? Let's test it out in the world. What does that data give me? How do I recalibrate this? Not always so consciously as I just laid it out there, but it's more like, I think this is a data stream. It's not truth. It's just data that I'm getting in. How can I use this as part of the rest of everything I'm getting in?
There's a book by Antonio Damasio called Descartes' Error, where he talks about the body's felt senses being a really important part of even rational decision making, which is something I find fascinating. Um, the idea that if I have two things to choose from, there's infinite different criteria and considerations that I can make. You know, should we do it on the Wednesday or should we do it on the Tuesday? And he talks about a patient of his who had some sort of brain damage. He was a neuroscientist, cognitive scientist. I think he was a surgeon as well. So he was like clinician, researcher. Anyway, interesting guy. Um, don't know if he's still alive. We'll put it in the show notes. Um, don't get distracted. He had a patient who had some kind of impairments to his like felt emotional processing um, of the world. And when it came to, he said he came to see him, the patient came to see him on a very icy, snowy day. And he said he did really well because he just followed the procedure, which is like you turn into the skid or out of the skid, whichever one is the right one. Like, don't panic and you're fine. And that was really good because he wasn't like panicking and making silly decisions. But then when it came to choosing whether to um, attend the next appointment on the Tuesday or the Wednesday, he couldn't. And he said, well, the Tuesday might be a slightly higher chance of rain, and the Wednesday I have this. And like half an hour later, he was completely like unable to make the distinction. And that's because like his felt emotional state wasn't able to show him which one he cared more about. And that's actually like a really important decider for us, even on rational or mathematical decisions, like which data is important, which logic shall I use? Well, I care about one of them more than the other, and that helps me.
And that really reminds me. There's a study done, I think, on like over 100 traders, so stock traders, and basically they were looking at what separates high performing ones from low performing ones. And they had I'll find out and I'll send you over the thing so you can put it in the notes. They found the ones that separated the high performing ones was the high performing ones thought their emotional response mattered in what trades to make, and they were curious about what their emotions were telling them. Whereas the ones who were not high performing didn't think emotions mattered and just tried to ignore their emotions in trading.
It's something we hear all the time, like take emotions out of it, which like sometimes is the right answer, but often it's not the right answer. It's not like it's a sort of Cartesian enlightenment idea that like our internal thinky brain is like better, cleverer, higher priority, more useful than our body brain or our body mind or something like that.
And so many times people will like say, yes, I do things by reason. This is what I need to do. But then when it gets to crunch point, it's like the fear or something comes up. They're like, they know what to do, but then they end up doing the opposite because all the unprocessed stuff is coming saying like, hey, listen to me. Our system's trying to communicate. And if we push it down, it just comes out louder and in a sense takes over our agency.
And also there's like a million ways of like logically arguing anything, right? Like I can pretty much defend any proposition that someone puts in front of me. So like how do I choose which propositions I defend or which things I care about, which things I try to argue for? Well, it's probably going to be my body that chooses the ones I like first, and then I logically defend that. And if you're not aware of the fact that that's going on, then you'll be hamstringing yourself in some way.
I would love to make a distinction because a lot of people talk about mind or body as two separate things. And for me, it's the system. And the body is part of the system, which is, and I think we've talked about this, and I just want to make it clear for the viewers who may not have these conversations we've had before, where our body is intrinsically linked with our mind and vice versa. And even separating this stuff as, oh, it's about bringing in the body or, oh, it's bringing in the mind, I think is kind of missing a huge part of what's actually going on.
So it's bringing the whole system, you're saying.
Yeah, I'm saying the system is the system. You can't just be in the mind, you can't just be in the body because that's not how we're wired. We are intrinsically, those two systems are intrinsically linked. And it's actually accepting that and using that truth actually allows us to make better decisions, be more of who we want to be in the world.
There is something though, like about people tend not to need most of the time the advice of oh, listen to your brain more, like you use more of your thoughts, because I think that's kind of like dominant in this like post enlightenment sort of world that we live in. But people don't, like you say, you get a lot of resistance from the people you work with to using their bodies or to using body techniques. So I guess that's something I'm interested in. Like, what for a listener or a viewer who doesn't know where to start in using their body to show up for work more, or to show up in their life more, or to sort of be more integrated and use what's available to them to live a better life, make better decisions. Where would they start?
So I'm trying to think of a general thing. This is depending where you are, depends where'd be the best thing. The like meditation, like micro meditations, could be a way in. Um, Another way is journaling. People just journaling. Just say you've got an issue you're struggling with. Take some time. Go. Okay. What am I thinking about this thing? Like, what's in my head about it? What am I feeling emotionally in relation to this? And what am I feeling sensorially in relation to this? So it's a version of Socrates. I think it's Socrates. He talks about head, heart, and body as ways of interpreting the world. So bringing in the head. What am I thinking about it? What's clear about this? What's not clear? Okay, then take in the heart. What emotions are coming up? Am I sad? Am I angry? Am I hopeful? Am I excited? And then the body, what are the physical sensations that are coming up around this? Am I noticing tingling in my hands? Am I noticing the temperature of the air around my face? Am I noticing my gut clenching up? Anything on the physical level. And then and then just being curious about that. And a lot of people try and go, okay, I'm feeling this anger. What does that mean? Rather than just being, okay, let's be open with it. Let's just see, okay, I've got this. I've got this sensation here. Is it okay just being with that without trying to categorize it?
Solve for it.
And solve for it, yeah, exactly. And often in being that, it creates more expanse. It creates possibilities and options that are different from our usual way of being of, I just need to solve this straight in a very linear fashion, understand what's what, where it fits. And we're talking about emergent conversation rather than letting things emerge. And it can feel quite scary if you're used to categorizing things and ordering them to go into this place of not knowing. But that place of not knowing also is a place of creativity, of new solutions and new possibility.
So I'm journaling and I write about something that has pissed me off that day, and I say, hey, I noticed that I'm thinking about this, and okay, I noticed that I'm feeling angry, and like angry for me means I'm tensing my stomach and my jaw is all tense and I'm getting tingling in my hands, and I'm noticing a sort of hotness in my face. Um, Instead of going, right, that means I'm angry and that means I need to go and tell everyone that I'm angry. What might I do instead?
So first I'd even separate. So I'm feeling this anger. I'm feeling really angry. And then and with that anger I'm feeling, separate the feeling too. So it's like I'm feeling angry and I'm feeling like this rage or whatever. And then it's complete, okay, what am I feeling? And don't attach the feeling to the act, because there will be sensations that are related to the anger, but there's lots more going on. And as soon as we label it, we restrain it and we constrict it to what we think it is.
So you mean if I go, I'm angry, and what am I feeling in relation to that anger? I might just go, stomach's clenched and jaws tight and fists are balled up and I'm yelling. Whereas if I go, I'm angry, fine. What are all the things I'm feeling? Well, I might go, okay, well, actually, there's like quite a nice soft velvet on my head, and I want to, and that's not, I'm not doing this very well. But like, can you? Maybe I'll invite you to complete that picture rather than me stumble over it.
So yeah, so I think it's more, I'm feeling anger. Okay, like my emotional sense is anger. What am I feeling in my body? It may be I'm feeling tight, I'm feeling clenching, I'm yelling. but it's also creating a separation between the feeling and the sensation so that there is also space for other things if there are other things, rather than, because a lot of us, we've got ideas. If I'm angry, this is what it looks like, this is what it feels like. And when we actually stop and break down to see what's actually going on, it can often be super surprising. And when we actually allow space for it, because most emotion, literally when it's, emotion lasts generally a really short period of time. But sometimes we hold on to it and we try and make it into something solid. So in actually creating the space for actually just what is there rather than this is here because of this, it allows whatever's there to be there, and it also allows it to change. And often when we're with what's happening, we notice, oh, actually it's not static. So I've got this clenching feeling. Okay, if I'm with this clenching feeling and I let this be here and let it be as big as it is or as small as it is, something will often change in its quality.
A concept that's helpful here is, I think, the difference between like sensing, feeling, sensations, feelings, and emotions. I think that's what I mean. So, have you ever done circling? Has that ever been on your list? No. So there's that
Great practice.
amazing practice. For those that have not circled, or this is first coming across, or yeah, maybe it feels like it's weird for me. Like, have you ever done this thing? Hey Simon, can you tell us about this thing that I just asked you about? But what's circling?
So my experience of it is it's a group practice where you're going in and the invitation is to be as present and as real in whatever that means to you in it, owning your experience of what's going on as your experience. So it might be like I'll see something in you. It's like, I'm noticing I'm really curious what's going on for you, Daniel, because you've not spoken in 5 seconds. And how that feels in my system is I'm noticing anxiety, like my fingers are like moving like this. I'm feeling heat. Oh, now I'm feeling embarrassed about having shared that. And it's just this flowing of people finding a way to be in space together.
Notice things about themselves and notice things about each other and say them without any expectation. It's a really cool practice. It's not like something that we should do at work, I don't think. It's not like it's not productive at like getting shit done, building software, making profit for the man. But it is it's a really cool exploration in the same way that like solo meditation gives you something that you can take into the rest of your world. Circling is something that does the same thing in groups. Like, how do I feel in relation with others? The reason why I brought this in, the reason why I asked you to explain it out of nowhere, is that one of the questions in circling is, if you say I'm feeling curious, someone else in the circle, it's a circle of people sitting there, someone else might go, how do you know you feel curious? Which is such a nice question, because it's not something we often think about. I'm angry. Well, how do you know you feel angry? And that forces you to get out of the interpreted head version of this is what anger is, and more into how do I know I feel angry? Well, I am yelling, my voice is louder, I can see that, and like my face feels hot and my hands feel tingly, and like I'm clenching my stomach. So what happens if I work the other way around and like release my stomach and unclench my jaw and have a deep breath? Maybe some of that interpreted feeling of anger will subside. Maybe I'm not feeling angry, maybe I'm feeling a different thing. I'm mislabeling it as well. I think I'm feeling angry at you, but actually I'm feeling like scared about something that happened at work earlier today, and I'm missing something.
Yeah, and I think that mislabeling is such a common thing. I've noticed it myself, and it can almost be quite embarrassing when I felt like, oh, I know what's going on with this, and then when I actually explore it, it's like, yeah, it could, like, instead of angry, it's like, oh, I'm scared of being vulnerable, I'm scared of being rejected, and the anger is a protection. But I can be so certain that I know exactly what's going on. And we're talking about how we make sense of things with our emotions. And anger is a really powerful transformative thing, which is often about protecting something which is important to us. But often, yeah, that can get channeled if we mislabel what's actually going on, can get channeled in a way which doesn't help us.
And so if I'm at work and something makes me angry, or someone makes me, or I'm angry around someone, it doesn't mean that I'm right, but it does mean that something has happened that's important to me. And
Mm,
that's worth addressing, maybe with them, maybe not with them. Uh, But it's worth me addressing, like, why does this thing make me angry? Either because like they're being a dick and I need to give them some feedback, or because they've been fine and I'm scared about something, or something's in some boundary that I have, or something that I find important is being threatened.
mm, yeah. And on the topic of anger, I think there's something, especially in workplaces, it's we don't have many just generally good models of how to express anger in a constructive, positive way. And anger can be so powerful, so beautiful. It can be. I was working with a client who was like had lots of frustration, which is the PC way of expressing anger. And we were working with it. And as he started, at first he was like resistant about the fact that he was feeling angry, but as we started going into it and there was the permission for him to feel it, and he started talking about the things which were important to him, it's like, this anger is his passion. He's taken me on that with his anger, showing it in this way. It's like I'm rooting for him because I can see this is really important, and there's something in it. And I think it's the flip side of anger, because anger can be super dysfunctional, super destructive, but it can be inspiring, and it can be that juice and that energy that can bring people along on the journey with us.
I know that like for lots of the software developers I work with, they go like, this bit of code makes me really angry. So I stayed up and I blah 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 and I put in some extra effort and I just like tidied it up and now it's done. And like, that's not like destructive anger that was sort of directed at a person. It didn't come out as aggression. It's like not violent, but it is like the cause for change. And if we say you can't be angry at work, you miss the chances to do that. And it's reasonable to not want to be like the intuition of we should be careful about our anger at work makes sense. No one wants to work in like a violent workplace where your colleague's anger at something comes into aggression or bullying or anything like that. But we can throw out the baby with the bathwater if we're not careful and say like, what's making you really angry about this place? What is that telling you about what you know about this workplace or this project or whatever? And now what should we do about it? Come on, let's like, does this make anyone else angry? Yeah. We're not going to
Mm.
stand for this unrefactored code any longer. Rah.
And I think that just trying to put a lid on it without finding more constructive ways to express it, it's going to leak out into passive aggression, into more destructive things. Because if there's something there it's there, and you're putting a lid on a pressure cooker, and it's the finding constructive ways which can be done individually or as a system, finding group ways of how do we there's this stuff happening in the system, how can we as a system work with this in a way that's constructive, because it's trying to show something's going on.
So how do we do that? If you have a group or you have a person who's part of a group where there is anger present or there are problems, how do you bring those things out in a way that channels the emotional intelligence, that channels what the emotional intelligence of the group is bringing um, into something constructive?
So it's a good question. I think a fundamental thing that's required at base is a level of safety within the group for things to be there, and building up that safety, that foundational safety, that there's some trust that people actually want other people to be who they are and be real and bring this, and that people won't be blamed or shunned for bringing things which might be uncomfortable. And a really useful way of doing this is that systemic approach. So it's rather than this is John over there is just an angry person, John over there is expressing anger, which is saying something about the system that we're in. And if we depersonalize it from John, what is this? He's sending us a signal. There's signal in what John's doing with his anger, which could be pointing at something else which we're not dealing with. What if we look at and depersonalize it there? So it's like, actually, John, you're giving us a gift with this. And it can be difficult for a lot of people to shift into that mode of this. And I'm thinking of this systems approach might be quite alien to some people who are listening. So one of the examples which, when I talk to a lot of people, this resonates with them, is a lot of people have someone in the team who's a difficult person. They're really difficult. They always create problems, and they don't understand why they're always creating this problem. And
Been
then,
that person many times.
as have I. And some companies they just deal with, or some teams they deal with it. Sometimes the person will get moved to another team. Sometimes they'll be fired. It's interesting that when they're fired, often it's their replacement, or someone else then becomes the difficult person. And you could then say, oh, we're just choosing difficult people. Or it could be, hey, this person's reacting to something that we're doing that we're not paying attention to. And if we actually look at it from that perspective, what are we not paying attention to, and actually using this, which can be amazing for improving team dynamics, increasing productivity, increasing actually making things happen. Because this thing here that's affecting this person is likely affecting other people in a different way as well. It's just this person is almost the canary in the coal mine.
And they have a sensitivity to problems for whatever reason that they are then bringing into like the team intelligence there. Maybe the analogy is like it's like an Inside Out where there are the different emotions sort of playing different roles, and they're sort of useful at different times, and that kind of thing. Well, we scale that out, and we have a team that's full of people representing different different roles in that group intelligence that we can use. And the example I often think of is the people whose job it is to test the software often have quite a can be like the quote unquote difficult people, perceived as the difficult people. And that's because they're always finding problems and stuff, and they're always like being vocal about those problems and trying to get them on the agenda. They don't often come with solutions, and you're like, yeah, that's because they're a tester. Like that's their job, is to be like sensitive to problems, not necessarily know how to solve them, but be good at like being vocal about them, and don't be worried about voicing that. And that's like a really important part of the like software production process. You need someone to try and break the thing and tell everyone about it. Don't get annoyed when that person then looks at like other things in the system that's not just the software, and also like gets annoyed at them and doesn't really know, and like applies that same cognition. It's possible that they're right. It's possible that person's wrong as well, or they've got a misunderstanding, or they've got a bee in their bonnet, or whatever. But like our starting point should be like what elements of these different people in their blendedness and with their different preoccupations and their different neuroses, like, well, what is that offering to us as a group if we integrate it better, instead of just being like, that person's difficult and they're annoying and they're causing trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a really powerful way to do that is, what role is this person playing in this system? And even just making that conscious, because they may have dropped into this role, they may not have chosen this role, and they may be uncomfortable in this role as well, or always being in this role. And then, because it's not fun being in that place of provocateur and having everyone experiencing you as provocateur.
It can be.
Sometimes. If you want to be, but some people find they fall into that role, and other people fall into the role of being angry at that person being in that role, not realizing that actually a big part of this is a co-creation.
I reckon both those people, the person who is like finding all the problems and talking about them, and the person who's getting annoyed at that person, both think they're doing their job well. Right, because the person finding the problems is like, I thought I was supposed to find problems. Like, I know that when I'll speak for myself. I do this. I'm in a team, and I find myself being like, well, here's the thing, and here's where it fits into a big systemic thing, and here's the risk of it becoming a bigger problem than anyone's aware of, and like, wake up, sheeple, like the problems are on their way, and it's all going for the apocalypse. And when I do that, I believe in my heart of hearts that I'm doing it because like I care about the mission, and everyone cares about the mission, and like if we don't know this thing that I'm talking about, we're going to solve the mission slower, more expensively, worse, less effectively. And the people who get annoyed at me for doing that, or get annoyed at the other person for doing it, are like, they think they're doing a good job, because they're like, our job is to be together as a team and be aligned and be on the same page and like drive forward and and be, I don't know, productive or positive thinking or things like that. So it's integrating those things healthily, and that can be easier said than done.
Yeah, 100% agree.
It feels like a good place to like start to bring it to a close. Are there any like open tabs you've got in your mind of like stuff that has been sparked by what we're saying that you wanted to bring in that you haven't had a chance to?
So many, but I think they're a whole stream of consciousness. Rather than closing up, it's going to be a whoosh.
Okay, and that feels like a good segue into having you back and talking about the rest of the open tabs.
It's been really lovely being here and being in conversation with you.
Thanks, Simon. It's been lovely being here, being in conversation with you. Until next time on Intelligent Teams, making it weird since 2023. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Intelligent Teams podcast. I've been your host, Daniel Susser. If you enjoyed this episode, there's a good chance you'll enjoy being a subscriber to the Intelligent Teams Substack. It's intelligentteams.substack.com. You'll receive a free weekly newsletter featuring this podcast or writings about cognitive science and building intelligent teams. See you next time.